is.
Okay, please.
You know.
So you got some mumbo sauce, Capital City mumbo sauce.
A little taste.
Y'all remember the winner?
You know.
Sweet. Well, which one did I get? This is the spicy one.
We want to see if it reminds me of how it was back in the day when I was eating it.
Oh, back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now, if you...
This is a little sweeter than the ones I remember.
This is really?
Yeah.
You think it's sweet?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. But do you like it?
Yeah, it's good.
How many stars would you give it?
Out of 5?
Yeah.
4.5.
Capital City, y'all got to get some mumbo sauce. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Late Night with Liv. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. It's very easy. It's free. And you're going to miss out on great stuff. So make sure you subscribe. Nonetheless, I'm very excited about tonight's episode. It's the legal edition with my good friend Taalib Saber of the Saber Firm. And we got a lot to talk about. Welcome back. Like I promised, my special guest is here. And I'm so excited because we're going to talk about a whole lot of legal stuff that you probably should know about. And if you didn't know about, share it with somebody else. So, Taalib Saber, Esquire.
Yes.
That's how you, okay.
Yes.
Do you like Esquire? They make you sound like...
I mean, I really don't because it gives off a very pretentious type of feel.
I can see that.
You know, you just Taalib.
Unless
you retain me.
Unless you retain them.
Right.
Then you got to add the Esquire. Okay, so the Saber Firm. Tell me about it. What's going on? What made you open the Saber Firm?
Sure. So I know one of the things I wanted to do when I graduated was I wanted to be on my own because I'm a filmmaker as well as an activist.
Where'd you go to school again?
North Carolina Central. For law school and undergrad Morgan State.
Okay.
So, yeah. But I wanted to have a little bit of, hey, don't hate.
I like the Eagles. What do y'all, Eagles?
Yeah, legal Eagles,
right? Legal Eagles.
But I wanted to have the flexibility in my schedule so that I wouldn't be locked down on a firm job or anything like that. And also, I wanted to control I wanted to be able to write my name on the front and the back of the checks, essentially.
Okay.
So that's why I opened up the Saber Firm, and it's been a blessing because I'm able to have mentors who are able to assist me with just the inner workings of the business aspect to the practice of law. You know, and it really is. It's a lot harder than
what it looks like.
Yeah,
okay,
just a little bit.
Okay, well that's fair. So what's going on with this top 40 national lawyers?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that. What is it, and how did you find out about it?
So I got a mailing. Something came in the mail saying that they offered me membership invitation to be the top 40. This is the National Trial Lawyers Association. The top 40
National Trial Lawyers Association. Cool. Okay.
Top 40 lawyers under 40.
Okay.
And I was perusing their website too, and I'm like, oh well, shoot, I'm the only brother that may be admitted, at least in Maryland, for the top 40 under 40, and it's a very prestigious honor. So I'm like, oh, they must really be checking for me then.
Wow. So when will you find out? When is that? Like, how does that process work?
Well, it's a membership. Okay. So you pay the fee and you get invited. You pay the fee and then you're admitted to.
Oh, that's all right. I need. Yeah. That's confetti for anybody who's wondering. That's great. Wow. Okay, so before we get into the legal discussion, tell me about the areas of law that you practice.
So I practice special education and education law, human rights and civil rights, and also personal injury law.
Personal injury law, and that's that like
car accidents, medical malpractice, slip and falls, stuff like that.
Slip and falls?
Slip and falls.
Wow.
And normally you see it during icy conditions if you're in a store and they have a sign and it hasn't been attended to. It's different elements to bringing a claim like that. But that's typically where you see it.
That's interesting. Slip and fall. Don't slip and fall. Okay, so I don't know how recent it was. I think it was fairly recent. The federal ruling on dreadlocks in the workplace. Yeah. It's something that's legally an employer can discriminate against. Is that correct?
So the way it works is, in the United States, there are different districts, right? And particularly with the case you're talking about, it is federal law, but it's in the 11th Circuit. The 11th Circuit covers Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. Okay. So basically, 7 states. Okay. So basically, what happened in that case was there was a sister who had locks, and she went to apply for a job. They offered her the job and everything. I think either they saw her or somehow they knew that she was wearing locks.
Okay.
And they told her, okay, you want to cut your locks and if you want this job. And she's like, no, I don't want to do that, and then they rescinded the offer from her.
Wow.
So she sued, or through the EEOC, the Equal Employment, they sued the company. It's an Alabama company.
On her behalf.
On her behalf.
Okay.
And they lost on the district level, district court, and then the circuit court. And then gave the ruling that because hair is not immutable, in the sense of when you're dealing with they sued under the Title 7, which basically says that an employee cannot discriminate on the basis of race, sex, religion, those type of things, the First Amendment. But hair is something that can be changed, essentially.
That's true.
So you can cut it off, you can do different styles with all these things.
Right.
So that was their basis of saying that employers can do that, not on the basis of the race. That's what they told people, right? But we know that for the most part, dreadlocks, locks as I call them, are associated mainly with black people.
Right.
And the majority of people who wear locks are black.
Right.
So it isn't necessarily overtly discriminatory, but in practice it would be, because the more people who would succumb to that rule would be people who are black,
Right. So what if it's a religion and people are wearing their, or they want to say, well, my locks are for religious purposes.
So like a
Would that
Rastafarian?
Yeah.
So that you can always bring that argument, right? Okay. The federal court has already made their ruling on if an employee can discriminate on the basis of just solely your hair. No, so the underlying claim was not a religious claim.
Okay.
She didn't bring it on the basis that she was either Rasta or anything like that. So it still could be changed. Either the legislation can rewrite the law, or it can eventually be challenged to the Supreme Court, which would be able to overturn it.
Now, in your personal opinion, your legal opinion, can you see the Supreme Court overturning it?
Honestly, no, because the way the court is set up now, the judges that are on the bench, in addition to the fact that you're dealing with hair and you're dealing with an oppressed sector of people, they probably won't. Because it's corporate interests as well. It doesn't. The argument isn't going to be made successfully, I think, that because the hair is attached to, because the hair is mainly associated with black folks, it would be discriminatory. I see the court saying, well, nah, it's hair. Unless you bring in a whole new group of people, some of the justices die off, or something like that, then maybe they may be a little bit more liberal in that line of thinking. But I don't think they have the numbers to overturn it.
Whew. So what should people do if they have dreads and that happens to them? How far can they go with the law?
Well, that's the 11th Circuit, mind you. Now, if they were to sue in, say, the D.C. Circuit, or in, I believe it's the 9th Circuit, which includes California, it may be different, because in those jurisdictions you have they're a little bit more liberal with regards to that. Now, it still may hold up, but in those different circuits, they have a little bit more black folks that are in power, as opposed to the Deep South where the 11th Circuit is. Yeah. And then also in New York, they just passed a law that bans employees discriminating on the basis of hair. Wow. So that's the part I was talking about earlier, with the legislature can actually write laws that would do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yikes. Okay.
But I mean, that should give our people an opportunity to create jobs, because if you own your own business and you got your own employment, then you don't have to worry about conforming yourself to societal biases.
All right. That's talking about marijuana use in Maryland. Well, in the state of Maryland. How do you say Maryland?
Maryland.
We from Maryland, so it's just gonna sound like that. Why do you say Maryland like that? I'm from Maryland.
That's how we say it.
With an M-U-R, land. That's how you spell it.
Exactly.
Nonetheless, so if you are smoking marijuana in your car, with or without driving, there's probable cause for the police.
Yes. So think about it in this regard. Probable cause essentially is more likely than not, or rather is you have cause to believe that a crime is being committed, or a crime has been committed. Right. So with probable cause in the car, if you're smoking weed, which is illegal in Maryland on the outside, it's illegal in Maryland, then you can get pulled over if they smell it, because in the law there's a thing called a warrantless search. So typically so just for y'all's edification, typically if an officer is coming into your house, they need a warrant to get in, right? If they're searching your things, they need a warrant. But there are different exceptions under the warrant rule in order for them to come in without one. So the automobile exception is one of those, because in the eyes of the law, the automobile is a movable object, so the evidence can be destroyed quickly, so it would take too long to get a warrant to do it, right?
Okay.
So with probable cause, if you're smoking weed in your car, then that gives them probable cause to search your car, because it's illegal in Maryland. Okay. So not only will they pull you over, but also they search anywhere that the weed could be found. That's why you see cars always being torn up, because weed could be found in the crevices of between the seat belt and the seat. Weed could be found in the glove compartment. There are different areas where weed could be found, so they can tear up your car, as opposed to if they were searching for a weapon. So say if they were searching for a gun, a gun can't fit in certain spaces in the car, so you can only search within the areas that the object can be found. So that's why I always tell the brothers and sisters, if you smoking weed, don't do it in the car.
Now, what if you're in your car, but you're parked and you're on your own property?
It's still illegal. In the state of Maryland, it's still illegal.
What?
Now, they decriminalized it, meaning that they will give you a civil citation for it if you're found with possession of less than 10 grams.
Okay.
You get fined for that. But
so if you're walking down the street just smoking,
that's foolish, to be honest.
It is foolish, but no, people do it. Like, I've been grocery store, people just walk right beside me like it's a cigarette. Because
a lot of them don't know that it's illegal, and they do it, or they don't care. But for the most part, I think about it like this. If you are in war, you're not going to do anything in which your open enemy will allow you,
it's a proverb,
allow you really to be captured, right? Okay. You're not going to tell any secrets. You're not going to make it overt what you're about to do.
Right.
And I think that because black people in the United States are under attack, mass incarceration, poverty, so many other different things, food apartheid, all these things. Because of that, we got to be more smart and judicious as to what we do. So it's illegal to be walking around smoking weed. So that gives the officers a probable cause to stop you and detain you and do all the insert you for the rest of it. So I think that we just got to be smart about it and know that if you're smoking weed, then don't do it outside.
So police brutality.
Yes.
What happens if you get stopped by the police and they beat you up? And you make it to see the next day?
The first thing that you should do is make it home. I've seen a lot of videos where we got a lot of, because this predominantly has been happening to our black men. So, but for the brothers and sisters, or anybody who's succumbed to police brutality, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you make it home, right? But when you are in that situation on the street, essentially you're outmanned and outnumbered, because typically it isn't necessarily always the one-on-one. Oftentimes you'll find like it's always 4 or 5 officers or whatever.
Right.
So you want to make it home, and that means that you would have to de-escalate the situation. If it's some things that if they talking to you sideways, okay, well, what is it that you're asking me to do? What crime do you accuse me of committing? Am I detained? If I am detained and they start asking questions, that mean that they have to read you your Miranda rights. You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used. But ask for an attorney if that's the case, because then you don't want to say anything.
Right.
But if they are beating you, I would say the first thing you do once you get home is to make sure that you file a complaint at that police department, because you're starting to create a record. Okay. And not only that, remember during the encounter, what the names are of the police officers that are doing it. Okay. If there are any witnesses around you, you need to know all of that as well, because what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for a civil suit later on. And it's much easier for us attorneys on that end to say, okay, you got the names, you got the witnesses, if you have footage, that's great, all these things, as opposed to us having to fish for all of it, and then the police will not comply.
Right.
Like they're not going to comply, so it becomes a bit harder. But the main thing that you want to take out of a police brutality or misconduct type of situation is that you want to make it home to be able to talk about it. Because on the street is not the time to prove that your manhood and do all these things, especially
like
when they
got and you go hard, and
especially when they got weapons on and you don't.
Oof. That's so hard.
Yeah.
Because you never know, really.
Exactly. I mean,
just
anytime that you live in a society in which it weaponizes your race, you're always going to be looked upon as somebody who's armed.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reality that we have to come up with, or we have to understand, is that that's just the dynamics of living in America. Exactly. So you have to go about it that way.
It's scary. And I don't even know. I mean, I've seen people say like, oh, I have trauma from watching this stuff on TV. Mm-hmm. I am just, and no shade to my police friends, because I have a lot of friends that are police officers, but sometimes I legit get nervous. Like when I get pulled over for something, like one time it was, oh, did you know your lights were off? But I was terrified because I didn't know. I just try to calm myself down, like you say, de-escalate the situation. Let me calm down. It could be something minor. I don't have anything illegal in here. I haven't been drinking. But it's just the interaction, and you see it so much. It's like...
It's not baseless, though. The thing about it is it's not baseless because historically, we've seen that the police have shot and killed innocent, unarmed people. That's a fact. That's not a pit. That's a fact. So anytime that we have encounters with the police, of course that's going to creep into your mind because you've seen it, you've read about it, and even before the whole social media wave. Yeah. Like this has been happening, and this is why I say it doesn't matter what you're wearing. How they say, oh, you need to dress in suits and do all these things. Did you see the lynchings back in the day? Right. Did you see the killings back in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s? They had suits on.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
It's just a sad reality.
So. De-escalate, get as much information as possible, file a complaint.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and then also consult an attorney as well.
And consult an attorney.
Right.
Okay. But they have to practice civil law.
Well,
is that required or is it preferred?
It's preferred.
Okay.
Any attorney can really practice that area of law, but you probably would want somebody who, and we can't use the term specialized, but you would probably want somebody who does that often, or at least has the resources and the time to be able to take on your case to do it.
Gotcha. Well, guys. Okay, so you've been an attorney for 4 years. What would you say is the most common misconception about getting legal counsel?
It's free.
Really? Oh no. Okay. I got what you're saying.
It's free. So a lot of people believe that, because I'm not only an attorney, I'm also an activist. So like I do a lot of things in community, a lot of programming in community. So oftentimes I find that a lot of people come up to me and seeking legal counsel, my professional, career, but for either reduced or for free, right? And that is one of the biggest. Anytime you have a business, that tends to happen. Like you would never go into a CVS and then get you an Excedrin pill and say go to the counter and be like, yo, so I see it's marked at $350. Right. I'm gonna give you $150 for it. Like you're not going to do that, but you find that in professions that like mine, there are a lot of people who tend to attempt to negotiate what you tell the prices are, and I'm like, no, this is not a negotiation.
Yeah, this is the rate. Yeah.
Right. So I would say that would be one, and then also another big one is the whole sellout thing. So a lot of people think that because you are an attorney, somehow you're in bed with like the court system or the police, the law and stuff like that. And I'm like, well, there's a bit of truth to it in the sense that we all have relationships in some capacity with, fellow attorneys. Right. But all of us aren't, cutting deals in the back room to attempt to throw somebody, down the river or under the bus. So I think that's a big one too. And you have to understand, especially as a black attorney, imagine, because I practiced criminal law for some time, for a little bit, but imagine always seeing people who look like you in jail in the courts, getting 10-year sentences, getting 5-year sentences, young brothers that are like that. And psychologically, what does that do to you? Especially for somebody who's a community activist, what does that do to you psychologically? So when somebody comes up and says, oh, I don't get it often, but when people come up and say, oh, attorneys, they all, this type of cut and all this and that. Yeah. Every day I put my license on the line for the work that I do. Right. So at any point I could be subjected to, being called to the bar to say, oh, we got a bar complaint or issue. So I think that's a big misconception that a lot of attorneys are cutting back deals, to sell their clients out.
I wasn't even thinking about that.
What were you thinking?
I don't know. I don't have... I know it costs money. I don't think I had a misconception other than I don't think I had the money, and I don't know if that's a misconception.
Well, that's a good point though, because to that point, an attorney doesn't have to mean that you are mortgaging your house to get one, because that's the opposite end. For instance, with my personal injury practice, that's all contingency fee based, which means that if you don't get paid, I don't get paid. So there's nothing that you need to put down or anything with regards to that. Yeah. And then the other things can be worked out. You can always sit down with your attorney and say, okay, say if you have a DUI, and you don't have the money to pay for the full amount for a DUI, sit and speak with the attorney. They'll work with you. Maybe we can arrange a payment plan. When I had my first case, that's how it happened. It was a hearing that I did representing a young child, and the mom did not have the money to pay me flat out. And I said, okay, well, I'll work with you. I'll put her on a payment plan, and she'll just pay in installments. Yeah. So you can always negotiate that.
Now that part I didn't know. Yeah. I'm thinking I don't have $2,000 right now.
No, you can negotiate it. Now, there are limits to it. Of course. In a sense. But you can always negotiate that,
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Everybody, that's all I have for tonight. And as always, subscribe. You have a blessed week. And if you have questions, feel free to DM me at Late Night with Liv, or if you have legal questions, at the Saber Firm. See you next week.